Family, or Grand Rising, good evening, or wherever you're joining us from today in the world. My name is Angela Asante-Armar. I am your host for today's and this coming new series, streaming live from Ghana on the platforms for Power to Our Mothers Foundation Africa, United States of Africa, the Facebook pages, and also the United Africa YouTube channel. If you are on the YouTube channel, please take like 1 second to subscribe so you with the latest information re Pan-Africanism. So today, I'm really happy to be kicking off this new live series called, as you can see, Female Genital Mutilation, or FGM, and its harmful effects. And I am most honored to be joined by this wonderful panel. I should say, apart from being your host, I am a member of, I'm a founding member of Power to Our Mothers Foundation Africa, registered here in Ghana, and also a member of Global Pan-Africanism Network's Queen's Club, if you like, the women's branch of Global Pan-Africanism Network. So before I introduce you to the amazing panel and our topic today, please just take a few moments, just let us know where in the world you are joining from. And, you know, don't be shy, put your comments, put your questions in the comments section, and we will see how much we can deal with as we go forward. So that's enough from me. Let me introduce us to our, or introduce you all to our wonderful panel. I am joined by, where should we start? I am joined by Dr. I think 14, 15 years, a long time, based out in Canada. And next we are joined by Queen Najar Nyakio, who is also based in Kenya and is a land activist, an environmentalist, and African wombman advocate. She will say more about that. And lastly, but not leastly, we are joined by Sister Yeama Susan Mansaray, who is an anti-FGM, female genital mutilation campaigner, a public speaker, and also founder of Purple Rose Health and Wellbeing. We may be joined by our other panelists later, and I will introduce her if she is able to join us. So first and foremost, please give a warm virtual welcome to our panelists. Welcome, sisters.
Hello, Angie.
Silence.
Sister Naya is muted.
Greetings, Dr. Unati. Greetings, Sister Yeama. Greetings,
hello,
Najar.
hello, wherever you are.
Wonderful.
Hello, wherever
wonderful.
you are. Thank you so much for joining us.
I apologize. Thank you. And good timing, we are now also joined by Sister Maryam Sheikh, who is a mother, community educator, and storyteller. Welcome, Sister Maryam.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Hi. Nice
Hello.
Great.
Hi, Maryam.
Great to see you all, and a very good, a beautiful looking panel. if I do say so myself. And
that includes you, Angela.
I received that, Sister Najar. Thank you. We do have a lot to cover, and that is why this is a first of at least 4 episodes in this new series. So, as I said, we're talking about female genital mutilation, or FGM, as it is commonly, unfortunately, known. So, if I can just open up by asking, I would say, our experts, here, for their various reasons, which we will find out about what generally or what basically is female genital mutilation. Sister Maryam, would you like to respond to that question?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Angela. FGM, as we may know it, female genital mutilation, others call it female genital cutting. And in many communities, it is considered to be a female circumcision. But from a human rights perspective, can you hear me? You can hear me?
If Sister Maryam, if you can speak, increase your volume slightly, I think that would help all of us.
Okay, thank you very much. Female genital mutilation, as we know it, is a practice that is done by very many different communities for many different reasons. And the word female genital mutilation is coined by human rights defenders to show how abhorrent this practice is. But to so many community members, this is what they call female circumcision. And others want to call it female genital cutting instead of female genital mutilation. But what we are talking about is a practice where the external female genitalia, that's the clitoris, the labia minora, and parts of the labia majora, depending on which community, are cut. There are those who cut just the clitoris, maybe some of it and part of it, and that's what WHO and partners call type 1. The others who cut the clitoris and the labia minora, part or all of the labia minora, that's what is called type 2. There are communities that cut the whole of the clitoris, the whole of the labia minora, and part of the labia majora, tie the legs of the girl together so that the wound can heal together and cover the vulva, and that's type 3. That is the practice done by my community, my Somali community, and many other communities. And then there is type 4, which does not include any cutting, but it is so many other things done to the genitalia. Some people pull, some people prick, others pierce, some people put rings.
Okay.
That. So this is what we are talking about when we talk about female genital mutilation. And that is the term I actually like using, even though many different people have different terms.
Thank you, Sister Maryam. We will probably cover some more of those aspects later, just to make sure people understand. We're going to have a short presentation about some of the background of or to female genital mutilation. But is there anything that you ladies want to add now in terms of just the general idea of female genital mutilation?
Okay.
Sister Yeama, please unmute yourself.
Yes, can I add? Yes. I think what I would like to say, added to what Maryam has said, I think the simplest way as well that we sometimes want to put it is that FGM, female genital mutilation, is the partial or total removal of female genital organs for non-medical reasons. I think it's very important for that to be there so that people know that, the clitoris of a child or a girl child is cut. So there's no medical reasons whatsoever. It's done purely on non-medical reasons. So either it's going to be because some people think it's religious or it's just part of their culture, but it's nothing to do with any medical reason whatsoever that the female genital organs will be cut.
Can I add something to what the ladies mentioned here?
The other thing, absolutely, Dr. Unati.
Yes, thank you so much, Angie, for having me right here. I'm so happy. You know, the other thing that kind of stunned me when I was looking at the topic is also done by the healthcare professionals. So that kind of makes me really sad because it's not like Yeama is saying it. There's no medical indication of doing this, and it kind of hurts me because in our oath taking, there is our oath plainly mentions it: do no harm. And it happens. And you know what? This is not only for doctors, even the nurses, when they sign their nightingale oath, which is kind of similar to the Hippocrates, there is a do no harm. So I would like to understand more as we go along with the discussion. How do they sleep at night when they do that knowingly that it's a non-medical practice? And of course, the ladies mentioned that it's cultural, but more than anything, I would like us to specify that it does violate human rights of these little infants or these women or these girls. That's what I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Unati. Sister Najar, would you like to add anything before we move to the short presentation?
She's muted.
Oh,
Okay, there we go. I prepared the presentation. Greetings, everybody. So I prepared the presentation so that we could further understand where this practice has come from. I usually do historical searches and research, and I teach from the foundation of knowledge so that when we stand on the platform of knowing, we are better able to understand how we can move forward. Because sometimes we fight battles without understanding what the battle is about or where it started. So for me, it's pointing if we're fighting a fire, it's pointing the water at the base of the fire. So I prepared a short presentation for this about the she story of FGM.
okay. Queen Najar, sorry, are you going to upload that or do you want me to do that?
Okay, can I share screen?
Okay. Yes. Can you see the? If you share, then I can share for you, I think. Let me. And family, whilst you're waiting for us, please do let us know where you're joining from. Welcome, Ras Gaddafi. And what kind of questions that you have.
So have you seen it? Or not yet?
Bear with me. Yeah, bear with me. Let me see. No, not yet. Okay, we will try this another way. I haven't seen it yet, so please bear with us, audience. Tech issues, they always seem to occur, and we get through them anyway. So I think I will be able to share that, Queen Najar. So please bear with me, family.
Oh no, I think I clicked a button which said, I think I clicked a button which
Famous
said
last
stop
words.
sharing. So let me start again.
No, it's okay.
You've seen
I
it?
can see that we're going to share now. So if you just yes, if you can, let's see. You're on the stream as well. So I've just added it. Ladies, please bear with us.
We should have practiced this before. Just trust women to do this, you know? So is it showing
No,
now?
don't say that. It was showing. Please try and reshare it. It was there. It's okay. That's fine. It's very important. I think it is a really powerful shorthand way for us to consume this information. So we will show it. Just bear with us. I'll let you know when I see it again. Otherwise, welcome, Florence from Nigeria. Thank you for thank you for joining the show. Going forward, it will be interesting to know what are the experiences of FGM in our different countries on Africa and even in the diaspora, because that is a thing too.
Yes, it is.
So have you got it now?
My apologies, family. Okay, one moment. I'm waiting for something to open. Okay, hold on, because otherwise. Whilst we are waiting, Sister Yeama, do you want to say something, a little something about Purple Rose and what that is, the purpose behind that organization? Bear with us,
Yes,
family.
absolutely. I think because I set up Purple Rose 9 years ago, myself and a few other colleagues, and that was when I moved into the area where I currently reside in the northeast of England. And it's like what we're talking about FGM in the diaspora, because for me, when I moved to the area, never ever imagined, even in this country, it's been practiced here, because you're in your homeland, it's happening there, it's part of the culture, it's something that people celebrate, the women celebrate it, and as such, when you leave that behind, it was never in my imagination that it was still being done here. But then over the years, what we realized, and even in the diaspora, I'm sure a lot of the women here will know that the reason why we're here talking about it is because it is happening in the diaspora, because we have seen with people migrating into other parts of the world and brought along their culture and their tradition with them. FGM, a culture that is about, and it's about a culture that's been inherited. Because you see somebody who say to, I say to somebody, why do you practice FGM? And they, well, grandmother did, my great grandmother did it, did it, so I have to do it, I will do it. So it's been passed on. And so it was at that moment of coming to the UK, and I realized where I was staying that, it's happening. That women were actually going in search of looking for somewhere to mutilate their babies. One, because they had no idea that it was illegal here in this country, UK, that it was illegal. They thought it was common as it is back in their homelands. And so that's when I set up Purple Rose to basically campaign against FGM, because I haven't been through FGM myself, thankfully, because I had a mother who went through it at the age of 7. I think after that terrible ordeal as a child, sure she can never forget, which I'm sure a lot of people who are victims of FGM can never forget. She vowed that, when I have children, I will make sure that none of them will have to go down that path. But in my homeland, back in Africa, where I worked as a journalist, I had a lot of interest, in FGM, especially after, I lost a friend of mine, at the age of 10 when she died. as a result of having undergone FGM just before she was about to take her exam. So that's when I decided, when I arrived here in the UK, in Stockton, where I am now, to set up Purple Rose. So basically what we do is I work with schools, I work with universities, I do trainings to social working students at universities and across the country as well. I train GP practices, as well as work very closely with schools as well. I train teachers. So basically anything that has to do with FGM in my locality, I get involved in that, because as much as, you know, we think it's a diaspora, but it's a massive problem here as well. And it's a massive problem when we see women are taking their children back to their home countries to have FGM done on them, because why? There, it's legal. They're allowed to do it. You know, they're going to celebrate them. They're going to say, oh, wow, you know, cheer them on and say, well done. You can afford to pay for your child to be mutilated. Whereas here in the UK, and I'm sure in other parts of the country as well, the world, you know, where it's illegal, women then take their children back home. But it's a massive problem here in the diaspora. And I think what we have to realize is just this culture that, you know, people just think, you know, I have to have it. You know, everywhere I go, it has to be with me. And it's very sad, because there's so many things that are linked to why they do it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sister Yeama. We will, I'm sure, hear more about this as in the coming episodes of the series. We do now have the presentation available. Queen Najar, apologies for that. Can you see it?
That's okay. No, I can't see it, but can you see it?
You can't see it on the screen?
And can you hear me?
Yes, I can see it. Can anybody else see?
Can everyone else see it?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I don't know what it looks like. So let me just go ahead, because I don't know how long this will last for. This is a short her story of FGM in Africa. I usually say her story because it's different from his story. Thrown to the dogs. We have all heard of the Roman horror of throwing Christians to the lions as a sport. Okay, so recently there has been significant proof that it's a white lie and it's a total myth. But what is true, and a story we are not well versed and conversant of, is another Roman horror concerning infants, infanticide, where unwanted babies were thrown out naked to the dung heaps and to the wild dogs of Rome, an act which brought about the maxim, thrown to the dogs or thrown to the wolves. Wild dogs roamed the outskirts of Rome, and unwanted infants were thrown out by despairing mothers, enraged husbands, or infuriated fathers. For example, Canis committed incest with her brother. Note, it's the other way around. And instead of her outraged father punishing the son, he ordered the newborn child to be thrown to the dogs and birds. So the so-called refined and educated Cicero in 106 to 43 BC, in his On the Laws 3.8, stated that deformed infants shall be killed. Now, the deformity could simply be an unwanted child, or a wrong-sex child, or a wrong-colored child. The Stoic philosopher Seneca, who died in 65 AD, comments casually on, in Anger 1.5, 15, the mad dogs would be knocked on the head, and unnatural progeny we destroy, we drown even children at birth. Note that Romanus, the founder of Rome, and his twin brother Remus were themselves abandoned by their mother to die, but a she-wolf suckled them until they were adopted by a shepherd named Faustulus and his wife. I usually say that Game of Thrones is nothing compared to what was happening in Rome at the turn of this century. So unnatural children included, and were especially those born from a slave. Suetonius mentioned that the Emperor Claudius himself insisted the baby daughter of his wife, Uguralal Nila, sired by a freed slave, be cast out naked. Slavery in ancient Rome. Okay, look at these. These are slaves. Played an important role in society and the economy. Besides manual labor, slaves performed many domestic services, and they were employed at highly skilled jobs and professions, some of them. All accountants and physicians were often slaves. Slaves of Greek origin were highly educated and skilled slaves, although sentenced to slavery as punishment. They worked on farms and they worked at mills. And yeah, they didn't teach us this ugly side of their history. So a major source of slaves had been Roman military expansion during the growth of the empire, but this use of former enemy soldiers as slaves led to a series of armed rebellions. And during the 1st and 2nd centuries AD, emphasis was placed on maintaining stability. So this lack of new territorial conquests in Europe dried up the supply of human trafficking. So you can see these pictures here. Problems began because the upper class Romans really needed slaves. They had hundreds of slaves. A normal middle class family would own 1, 2, 3 slaves. A prosperous member of the working class would have 1 slave. Female slaves worked as servants, personal maids to the mistress or housekeeper, while males worked in the field. So the government was put under pressure because there were no slaves. Can you all see this? They discovered a new source for their slaves. Africa. The African to Roman Empire slave trade. So the Romans began getting slaves from this area here and from Africa. Now, the Nuba African female slaves worked the same jobs as the white slaves did, as bondage servants. However, the Roman men used these slave girls for sex, and the resulting pregnancies were a problem. They disabled a slave from working for her mistress, or worse, black babies were very undesirable. They were also thrown to the dogs. Just get rid of the babies. At the same time, and during the later period of the Roman Empire, note this name, Constantine, remember that name? They started surrounding themselves with slaves for functions such as bathing, haircutting, dressing, bureaucratic functions such as court advisors and officials, accountants. But these men were a problem because the emperor's wives would beckon these handsome black slaves to their bedchambers. And the result was black babies everywhere. So the solution, fix the slaves. Males were castrated. Chinese, white, European, they were known as eunuchs. They castrated their own first, and they worked, so they began castrating the African slaves as well. Okay, so this is before and this is after. But what did they do? FGM. The term infibulation has its roots in ancient Rome, where female slaves had fibulae or brooches like this, pierced through their labia like this, to prevent them from getting pregnant. And the practice involved partial or total removal of external genitalia. In its severest form, it was called infibulation. The vaginal opening was also sewn up, leaving only a small hole for the release of urine and menstrual blood. And these are the types of FGM. This is the parts removed. Type 1, type 2, type 3, and type 4. These are stitches. And these are the methods of FGM. Burning, pricking, stitching, piercing. And where the practice involved partial or total removal of external genitalia in its severest form called infibulation. So the vaginal opening was also sewn up, leaving only a small hole for the release of urine and menstrual blood. FGM raised the price of girls who were sold into slavery. Because these young girls, from the viewpoint of the slaver, would be unable to get pregnant. They could not have sex. So a girl who had this particular sign of slavery was highly priced. So when they came to buy girls, remember that the Roman Empire began and condoned the practice. It was normal. The prices of the girls who had been infibulated were paid far more than those who had not mutilated their daughters. These two maps The map on the right indicates those communities that participated in the African slave trade. The map on the left indicates those areas today where FGM is practiced. So when we shout out and scream that FGM is African culture, it is correct. However, that culture was inherited 2,000 years ago and was as a result of the Roman culture and ways of life, which was dependent on slavery.
Thank you, Queen Najar. Apologies to the family and the panelists. That was a fantastic presentation, probably not delivered in the way Queen Najar would have liked to. So apologies for that, my dear. I'm hoping that the family did at least get the...
Some of it.
I'm trusting that the family did get the overview, and I like how it ended in saying that, you know, queens, women, sisters, knowledge is power, and it's so important what you were saying before, that it's hard to stand up and either fight or, you know, speak up in defense of yourself when you don't have the knowledge to back it up, because then it may just sound like emotions, or it may just sound, you know, groundless, if I can say. So what each of you are doing in your own rights, and even I, by having this platform, is at least doing our part to get information out there, because until it is actually ended, we can't speak about it enough or too much, I would say. So welcome, Elizabeth Johnson, our a fellow Kenyan sister saying the presentation was brilliant. So Queen Najar, thank you for persevering despite the technical issues. We will play that presentation another time, because I think the information there is, for some it may be basic, but me myself, I'm learning a lot about this from you ladies and others. So I think it's crucial that we learn the basics, repeat the basics. Some who knew something, maybe they have reminders. I think that is important too. Yes, a big thank you to Queen Najar for that. So from here, we've heard a little bit about some of the origins. I wonder whether I should describe it as literally how traumatic. I mean, that's what we can move on to now. When we talk about, so this practice, we're talking about female genital circumcision, or as Sister Maryam had said, and it is described in other places as female circumcision. Now, when we came to be talking about this, preparing to talk to you about this discussion, the question that I myself had is, what is the difference between, or is there a difference between female circumcision and female genital mutilation? Because one sounds completely, quite frankly, legitimate, maybe, what's the word? Hygienic, and the other one sounds traumatic. So I wonder if I can ask the panel, and if I can start with if I can start again with you, Queen Najar, and then we'll move to Dr. Unati, because we do want to address this traumatic side of it, which is not just us saying it. We have survivors on the platform who can talk about that. But if somebody asks you that question, what is the difference between female circumcision and female genital mutilation? How would you answer that?
There is absolutely no difference. When within the English language, what happens is that different words are used to try and absolve responsibility. So when you say circumcision, it's like to absolve responsibility of the deed which is being done, which is actually FGM. It's trying to make it, like you said, sound nicer and more clinical. But the fact is that circumcision is mutilation. And its roots are historically for one reason. They did not want these girls to get pregnant. There was a problem. There was a problem. And the problem was that the girls, the African girls, even the European slaves, okay, we have to understand this. The European slaves were also getting pregnant, right? And the African girls were also getting pregnant. So they were just cutting all genitals, for the males and for the females. So they come up with this word circumcision, which is supposed to sound nice, but it's the same thing. It's the same word. It's the same thing. You are basically cutting off the reproductive organs so that the female or the male cannot reproduce. And what hurts me about this is that today, in many of the cultures where they say that girls must be circumcised, they say that it is so that they can make better wives and bear better children. Okay, I'll leave the part about bearing for the doctors, because they know, I know they know, and they can explain better how it's worse. It's a mutilation, and the girl cannot give birth, because she's been mutilated. So I'll leave it to the doctors to explain about the scar tissue and everything else that happens. So no, for me, it is just a word to dress up and make it sound nice, but it's a mutilation.
Okay. Thank you so much, Queen Najar. Dr. Unati, can we please hear from you in your own words? Yes, we would like to hear some of the, if you like, the medical or clinical side, but what would you add to that in terms of the effects of this practice on our girls and young women?
Thank you so much, Sister Angie. You know, Sister Naja said it beautifully. We need to understand this is actually affecting even other parts of the world. According to World Health Organization, there's like 200 million girls and women affected by this. You know, and this is seen in Africa, we see it in Asia and Middle East. And you can actually see these three parts of the world. That's where mostly patriarchy exists. It's very prominent. So this is all about basically violating women's rights and girls' rights. And to touch on the medical aspect of it, this actually costs the world, or every year, 1.4 billion US dollars to actually help these kids, or probably these women, heal from it, because it comes with also complications medically. Clinically, we see these kids bleeding severely to death sometimes, because remember, it's also done in infancy and probably up to the adolescence age, up to 15. That's more where it's common. So we see bleeding. These kids could die because of hemorrhage, like severe bleeding. And of course, later on in life, they could actually even develop scars down there, because like the sisters described, you can actually cut this clitoris to an extent that it could go deep and cause strictures like closure there. And then it brings those basically scars I was talking about. And of course, cysts, you know, you could actually develop cysts from this. So it brings a lot of issues, and of course difficulties in urinating, because now you have this tight opening there. And remember the ceiling, the type 3, where you have that ceiling, it's sealed. How are you going to pee? How are you going to have your menstruation pass through that little opening? So there's also those difficulties. This not only affects these kids or these young women physically, it also has an impact psychologically. And this is the sad part, they never heal from it. The people that I've had who experience this, there is no cognitive behavioral therapy or whatever counseling you can give these kids or these women that could get over this. It's traumatic. And remember, when we do CBT to our patients or clients, it's basically to change the mindset. How do you change the mindset of what was done to you that was traumatic? So that's the problem. So there is nothing that would necessarily heal. I mean, people, they try to move on with their lives, but they do suffer from severe depression. People live with major depressive disorders. And again, remember these countries I mentioned, these are the places where even mental health is not talked about. It's frowned upon. In Africa, we're trying right now with our page here on GPAN, we're trying to mobilize mental health topics so that people can actually come up and talk about these things. This is trauma, as you saw on Sister Naya's Naja's pictures. That girl was so traumatized. They carry that pain. Sister Yeama mentioned her mom. She was so traumatized that she vowed she would never let her kids go through the same process. That PTSD right there, post-traumatic stress disorder. So these things are serious. There's major depression, like I mentioned, post-traumatic stress disorders, anxiety, and this affects your whole life. The course of your life is damaged. It's destroyed. Do you understand? So it's kind of more than, I would like us to go back to that history Sister Najla gave us, to understand as a Black people, to look at the history. Because right now we are taken away and led to this belief, and we come and mention it as a culture. This is not our African culture, to be honest. And the sad part, these young women or these girls, or let me rather say women in their older age, when they want to enjoy sexual intercourse, because their clitoris is their sensitive part, that is violated. It's taken away from them. It's the most sensitive organ in the female genitalia. They are made not to enjoy it. And remember, this even goes on when they get married. You get beat up by your spouse because you are not enjoying, probably you are not responding. So it's bigger than just the physical aspect of it. You don't feel like a woman. A lot of times, these young girls or these women, they even commit suicide because they feel useless. I'll end there, Sister Angie, for now.
No, well, you've just, I'm sure you've just scraped the surface, because there's so much, there's so much in each and everything every one of you is saying. And that is why we can't just have one discussion about it, and why some of you have dedicated years of your life to helping women, girls who have been through this, are going through this, and why we as a people, like you say, first the collective of women, what that does to us, but what that does to our overall society, nations, because we are the givers of life. And if you tamper with too many things, it has consequences, and we are living the consequences of that. Even if you've never ever heard of female genital mutilation in your life, we are living collectively the consequences of this traumatic, harmful practice. So thank you, Dr. Unati. Sister Maryam, can I invite you to oh dear, she's just she's not on the platform now. We will invite her back. Sister Maryam was going to share with us her own personal experience as because we all have different exposure to this, the experience. I'm just adding Sister Maryam now. If we don't hear from her, then Sister
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeama,
No,
I
she's
will ask
back.
you to speak next.
My internet is
Sister
acting
Maryam, yeah?
crazy. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Sister Maryam.
Well, yeah, thank you very much. So, there's no difference between what they do, in whether they call it circumcision or whether they call it a religious practice or whether they call it it's for beauty and it is for this. They can give all the reasons, but what is being done is mutilation. And I went through that. I was cut when I was 6 years old. I am very lucky that I have not gone through a lot of the negative outcomes that come later in life. I'm very lucky. I'm one of the very lucky few people. But I can tell you the trauma, the pain is something you never ever forget. I still live with it. I still remember 4 decades plus years ago when it was done. So I still recall that pain, and I still recall. And it's not something that you forget. I haven't, you all know the kind of backgrounds you come from. We do not pay a lot of attention to mental health issues and all this. So I do not even know what other impact it has in my life. I am yet to really follow through that and see, because this is trauma. It's traumatic. FGM is traumatic. And so I am 100% sure there is trauma somewhere, and it's affecting my life. So, but generally, I have not had the keloids. I do not have the cysts. Did not have obstructed labor. I didn't have any recurrent, but FGM in all its types is traumatic. It's inhuman. It is life-threatening. That's the bottom line we need to see. A 6-year-old girl is being pinned down and her organs being cut. That's why it's mutilation. And it will remain to be mutilation, whatever name communities want to give it. I don't want to continue because my internet is bad. I don't think I'm even being heard. I see myself freezing. So, yeah, let me just give it to those who can actually talk about it. Thank you very much. talk more.
Have we lost Angela?
I think we've lost Angela.
Yeah, I think we've lost Angela. Oh, I think she's trying to come back.
I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Oh, you're here. Okay.
Oh, good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes,
we can
welcome
hear you.
back.
Yeah.
Did we lose Sister Maryam, or had you finished?
She says she's finished. Yeah, her internet is causing problems. She's finished.
Thank you. Oh, okay. Apologies. Sister Yeama, then, if I can just invite you to add your contribution to this part before we round up and say goodbye, because I did say there was a lot to cover. So
Yes.
we will come back next week, regroup and delve more deeply into some of these issues. So I will invite Sister Yeama to come and say something now. Dr. Unati has had to leave to start her day. It's 7 o'clock in Canada. And so she has children and patients to tend to. So we thank Dr. Unati for joining us today. Over to you, Sister Yeama.
Thank you, Sister Angela. And I think it's a very good thing that we have like 3 more series of this, because I think the topic of FGM is not something that we're just going to sit here for 2 hours, talk about it, and then we go away. That's the end of it. So I'm looking forward to next week as well. But I think just to add, with FGM, whether you call it FGM, whether you call it female genital mutilation, whether you call it female genital cutting, at the end of the day, it's mutilation. Mutilation, it's abuse. It's an abuse on innocent, young, vulnerable children. We're not talking about women here. We're talking about children. It's an abuse on children that should not be happening at all. So it doesn't matter how we call it, whether, because I know, I have been campaigning against FGM for over 20 years now, since when I was a journalist in my home country, and now when I'm here in the UK as well. And a lot of times what we see community says, oh well, they want to call it mutilation. It's not really that bad. And this comes from sometimes women who have been through FGM saying it's not that bad as they want to put it by calling it mutilation. Mutilation really sounds bad, like we're being mutilated. But that's what's happening. And what these women, what I say is, what they don't realize is, when they had it done, they were children. That's a violation of their human rights. That's a violation of a child's human right, because that child is innocent. And what saddens me about this whole process is the fact that this is an abuse done by women on women. It's an abuse done by women on innocent little girls. And the sad part is, you see parents, like when FGM is done in the countries, like when it's done in Africa, it's like a massive ceremony. I am from a community where when FGM is done, we call it the Bondo Society, because in some parts where it is practiced, it's seen as a secret society. So you have to really, have gone through that society for even you to be accepted within that community. And as children, you see mothers, that mother who is supposed to protect you, that mother who is supposed to make sure that no harm comes on you as their child. It's that same mother who takes their child, hand them over to these older women, because it's done by older women. It's that mother who takes the children to these older women who then perform the act on them. It is terrible. It is a practice that's going on. It's barbaric. It should not be happening. We do have people who say, yes, it's happening because it's our culture. It is not culture. FGM, female genital mutilation, has nothing to do with culture. It is an abuse, and it should not be happening at all. There should be no room for FGM at all in this 21st century. It needs to come to an end. It absolutely needs to, because it shouldn't be happening.
And I want to repeat and say that it is not our culture. It's not our culture. We've been lied into it. Okay, they didn't tell us the history. We've been lied into it. It's not our culture. It came from the Romans 2,000 years ago. Okay, 2,000 years ago. It's not our culture. It's not. It's a slave culture. It's a slave culture. It's not our culture. Yeah.
Unfortunately, Sister Maryam has dropped off again. As Sister Yeama said, and I repeat, now you see why we need to have a series and why there are women, and we'll touch on the men at another time, because I personally know men who have removed their families to to save their daughters from undergoing this practice, and I really commend them. But for now, we are intentionally being sister focused, because we need to enable to give a voice to our girls and our women in support, and to let them know that it may be normalized, but it's not normal. And as you've heard from each and every panelist in her own way, it is abuse, it is harmful, it is traumatic. In no which way can it, whether it ever could, but at least today in this age, it can no longer be justified or tolerated or downplayed. It's just no. So what I omitted to add, which I now remind our viewers, is that 25th November marks the start of an international campaign against gender-based violence against girls and women. And that's the start of 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. So it's very timely that we talk about this, because it is violence. You will hear from some of the queens that they very much would liken this to rape. Violation against your consent, against your will. And it doesn't matter, on one hand, it doesn't matter who is the perpetrator, because we were talking about the fact that women are holding the girls down. Sometimes the men are involved too, but we're still looking at the violation of that girl child's rights. So as you can see, we have a lot more to be talking about coming up. Some of the things I will throw out there that some of the panelists have touched on, the association between FGM and religion. That one, I guess, is a myth that we can look at. The stigma of either going through FGM, or conversely, the stigma around not undergoing FGM, because that one exists as well. That I was not aware of. So that one I definitely want to hear more about. Sister Yeama, I know you were sharing with me separately, and we want to hear more about that. And that is, simply put, I would say that when you are not following the status quo, then there are consequences. The surrounding society or community will out you or demonize you, or in some way, reject you. So that I'm very much looking forward to the Queen talking to over time. However, something like this, it's important. So I just wanted to give the panelists one final opportunity just to leave a closing message for this episode. We will be back next week. So who would like to go first? Queen Najar, please go ahead.
I want to give a shout out to Sister Maryam Sheikh, because it is through her that I came to understand about FGM. She has taught me so much through her work. And the reason that I'm giving her this shout out is because she has in her community received a lot of negativity because of speaking out. But she has that courage. And I'm telling you, Sister Maryam, thank you so much, because you have taught me so much. I also didn't know that it is not practiced. It's not a religious practice. I thought it was a religious practice until I started reading your articles and understanding that it is not. It's not written anywhere that girls should undergo FGM. So thank you so much, and continue talking, because when you do, somebody hears. And in my case, I heard.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Queen Najar. Queen Yeama, would you like to?
Yeah, I think I would just like to say, okay, I thought I was on mute there. I think just like you said, Angela, obviously we know that the 25th of November is the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. 2020. I think, this fits in perfectly, the series that we've started, because I think, we cannot stop talking about FGM, because believe it or not, it is happening. In the UK here, we had the first prosecution in over how many decades that it was made illegal. And that was from a mother who took a 3-year-old child, mutilated her, and then the child was then bleeding. And then there was no way, the child had to go to the hospital. And then she said, oh, the child fell over and hurt herself from a biscuit tin. Now, this is a 3-year-old. So can you imagine this is happening here? So it just goes to show that it's still happening. And we need to make more noise about it, because what FGM is all about is the control of women's sexuality for the men. That's what it's about. And we should not allow such things to be happening, especially when it's happening to children. Like I said, I have campaigned about this for over 20 years. And what Queen Najar just said there, about Maryam. We see people from the community who say to you, oh my God, you don't sound black. Oh my God, you've been so westernized that, you've forgotten about your culture. But for me, personally, I always say FGM is not my culture. FGM is abuse on innocent children that we should all be making noise about it. We should not allow our friends to take their children to be mutilated. We should not get together with our friends and bring over our grandmothers and grand aunties to cut our children. We should all make noise about it. This is the time to end all violence against women and children, because there should not be a place for it in this 21st century.
Thank you so much, Queen Yeama. I look forward to having you back next week, like I said, where we will delve deeper into some of these issues. My sister Maryam, Queen Maryam, any last words for the guests before we wrap up?
She's on mute.
I think she's trying to unmute. Can you unmute yourself, Sister Maryam?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm trying. It's taking time. Hear me now? Oh my goodness.
Yes,
I'm so sorry. Today I don't know what happened. Thank you.
It's okay.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you for this. Yes, I am so.
Oh no. What happened?
We're losing her.
Sister Maryam, I think you have accidentally muted yourself.
Yes.
It may be the connection.
Yeah.
If we get her back,
Here
oh,
I
there
am.
we go.
Here I am. Here I am. Yeah.
We can hear you.
Yeah. So I am so sorry to the listeners today. I wasn't able to partake as I would have, because for me FGM is my personal mission, and any human being who wants to talk about it is always my friend. I ever actually say even the devil I'll give tea and sit with just because they want to talk about FGM. It, as I said, I am a survivor. As I said, I am a survivor, and I am happy and I am lucky that I am here in this time of age to just give voice to those who don't have voice. FGM has nothing to do with anybody's culture. Nobody owns pain. Nobody deserves to go through pain. Nobody deserves to be tortured. No particular part of anybody's body needs to be cut off. No one can say we're just going to cut a little bit, the tip, this and that. What they're talking about is a very important organ in the body. And if you've been following my discussions this month I decided I was going to take off the cover on the clitoris and say it in my mother language, which is kintir. It's called the kintir. And you should see the fireworks, the bashing, and all the discussions. But what I'm happy with is, even when people are castigating me, in their castigating posts or comments, they are actually mentioning it. And so mission accomplished for me. And I started this work 20 years ago.
Exactly.
People think, people think I'm starting it now and I'm only talking about it. No, I started this 20 years ago. I ran a religious-oriented approach to address FGM. We can talk about it later when we discuss that. But for as long as we continue to feel shame and continue to feel an ouch when these organs are mentioned, that is why FGM continues to thrive. There is no shame in naming the clitoris. You call it kintir. I want you all girls to call it whatever name you call it in your language. If you don't know, go research. We have to protect this precious organ. It is cut off from a young girl. 6-year-olds is when I was pinned down and cut off. Whatever name people give, whatever excuse people give, whatever justifications people want to come with, the only reason why we are cut at that age is this imagination that we are going to run mad, rave madly in sexual issues, being sure that men will not be able to protect us. Imagine being charged for a crime you have not even committed. Where does that happen in the world? Where does that happen in the world? A young 6-year-old girl, you're cutting her because you think she's going to run after men. Why don't you put things in her head so that she is able to make a decision on what she wants to do or not? So this is the reality. The reality around FGM is a crime on the girl child. It's a crime on being committed on the women folk. It's a crime against our sexuality. It's a crime against our lives. It has no basis, no reason for it to continue. As a survivor, I want to say I have one daughter and I have protected her. I actually crossed the Atlantic because I could not protect her from the negative talks. If I protected her physically from the knife, I could not protect her from the negative talks. I decided to come for studies and just bring her along. But you can see the backlash. You can see the kind of background I come from the bile and from the bashing and from the insults. But I'm very happy that today I am being discussed in every quarters back in my home. And the word they are discussing is the kintir, the clitoris. My mission achieved this month. Luta continua.
Keep going.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic. Exactly. We must all keep going. So, our listeners, thank you very much for taking the time out to tune in with us today. Thank you very much for bearing with the technical issues. Queen Najar, thank you also for bearing with the technical issues in giving your presentation. But I hope that you saw our viewers were very appreciative of what you shared, as was I. And like I said, I will invite you to reshare that because it is information that we need to know. And I look forward to our panelists sharing more of their journeys and the work that they are doing, so that you can spread the word, because everybody is doing their part in their own way. And we have different people, different audiences that we can reach. We are all working towards and speaking out against the same thing. But maybe the way we do it will attract us to different people. So we all have work to do. And what you can do is to share what it is that we are doing. You never know, if it is one girl child that you save, it's worthwhile. It's just a click share somewhere on some social media platform somewhere. So thank you again. We will be back next week, same time, and watch for updates as to what the focus will be for next week. Thank you. Until next week.
Bye. See ya.
Bye.